Welcome to this video. In this video, I am going to be showing you all the JavaScript you need to learn before you start with React. React developers love the modern features in JavaScript and use them extensively in their projects. So in this guide, I will go over the most popular features that are usually used with React. Most of these features are modern to JavaScript, but I'll also talk about some older ones that are related and important for you to know in JavaScript. This will not be a complete list of everything offered by the JavaScript language, but rather the subset that I think will help you write better code in React. So let's get to the first one, which is the block scope and the var let const keyword. So a block scope is simply created when you create a pair of curly brackets in JavaScript. So when you create a pair of curly brackets, you have created a block scope within it automatically. So the only exception to this is when the curly bracket is for a function. In this case, where we have a function that does something and we have a curly bracket after it, where we pass our instructions and what we want our function to return. So in this case, the curly bracket in this case is called function scope. And so let's look at the difference between the block scope and the function scope. So the only difference between the block scope and the function scope is it can be noted when we use the var keyword. So the var keyword is used to declare, is to assign variable to something, or you can say we use it to declare for variable declaration. So in this case, we have a variable result declared to be the sum. So we have a variable declared to a variable result which will return the result a plus b. So this variable is inside a function scope, as you can see. So we notice that while we try to get this variable outside this function, we got an error. Uncaught reference error, result is not defined as anonymous. So this is actually okay, it's ideal, because ideally we do not want to access a variable that is defined in a function outside that function. What we want to do is we call the function and passing the argument, its argument for it to do the task that is inside the function scope. So ideally inside the function scope we have where we have our return, what we want the function to return. So we do not call the variable, we don't need to call the variable, we don't need to use it outside the function. It is mainly for the function to return something. So we call the sum, we call the function and passing its argument for it to get a result. So but let's look at when we use var in the block scope. So in this case, for this for loop, we tried to use var. Actually, we use var to assign the starting point for this our for loop to be 1. Then we specify that I is less than equals to 10. Then we should increment I by 1 every time, for every iteration. So we see that at the end of the for loop, while we try to log the output of our I, we got 11, which doesn't seem right, right? It doesn't seem right. Ideally, we should not be able to access this variable because it should be only for the for loop, because we are only using it because we want to iterate. So ideally, it should just be for the iteration. We should not be able to access it outside. So we can see that we got 11, which does not even make sense. So that is why we have the let keyword. So instead of using the var keyword in modern JavaScript ECMAScript 6, the let keyword allows us to do the same task for the for loop. So we specified our I to be 1, I is less than 10, and it should increment for every iteration. The loop should increment, the I should increment by 1. So we can see that when we try to log the result of our I when using let, we got an error, which is actually right. That means the variable does not leak out of this loop. It can only be used in this loop and cannot be used outside anywhere else in the program. So this is the correct way. So where does const come in? Actually, const is used to assign a variable that does not change, that the value cannot change. So when you assign anything with const, that means it is going to be fixed. The value will not change. So you are just going to call the value somewhere else in your program, but you cannot change that value. You cannot change. For in this case, when we have const I is equal to 1, I will always remain 1. I cannot change to 2 because I is allocated to that particular one in the memory space, and it's going to be attached, it's going to be assigned to it throughout the program. So you can see that we cannot use const for this loop, because that means we will not be able to, the I will not be able to change values as it should, because ideally when I get I is 1, when the loop checks if I is 1 and it is less than 10, it increments it, but that means I values has to change for the next iteration to occur. But so if we use const for this, you will see that we cannot, the value of I cannot change. So we do not use const in this case. So this is one of the useful cases for using let instead of const. So ideally for every other thing, when you are declaring a variable that you do not want the value to change, it is ideal we use const. So so you have to know the difference between const, let, and var. Ideally in modern JavaScript you do not need to use var again. Everything has been replaced with let and const. So you need to know this very well if you want to become a good React developer, because you are going to be using it quite a lot. So let's get to the second one, which is the template literals. So previously in JavaScript, before the template literals, if we want to, for example, look at this example, we have const sample string is equal to Alan said. Notice that when we are assigning a variable to a string, we have to put the quotation marks to mark the beginning and the end of our string. So in this case we have, but now in this case we want to have another quote within our string. So our string Peter is learning JavaScript should be in quotes when we want to return the output. So you see that to do this we needed to be using backslash before the quotation mark, so that JavaScript is going to skip whatever comes after it if it will make the string stop or return an error. So sometimes you might want to add a new line there. You'll be saying we are going to have backslash n before we can have a new line, and so on and so forth. So and also when we want to do string concatenation, we want to add two strings together, we need to be using, we put each of the string in quotation mark, then we use plus and add the second one, and sometimes it is not very easy because you need to write add plus, leave space. You don't want to leave your space. We use this space before the end of the first string, or at the end of the first script, or at the end of the first string, or before the start of the second string. So this can be very tedious to do if you have something very long to write. So that's why we need to use template literals instead. So let's look at our template literals. We assign a variable output literals to this. So please note that the template literals is written in backticks. So the backticks character is located on your keyboard beside number 1. Ideally, that's very easy. So in this case, you can see that we just put everything in backticks, and we can have our output the same with what we did in the first sample string. So we can see that Alan said Peter. So anything JavaScript assumes that anything you put in a backtick is how you want to format it. So if we press enter on our keyboard inside the backtick, inside the template literals, it will ideally add a new line in the output. So you can see that it eliminates the need to use plus, the need to use backtick, the need to use backspaces and all, and it is very easy. And also we can pass another JavaScript function within this output literals. So to do that, we will need to use the $sign and put the JavaScript in a curly bracket. So you get to see that later in this video, and you see that you use it a lot in React. So let's get to the third thing you need to learn, which is destructuring. So destructuring simply extracts the named item out of an array using their position, or properties out of an object using their names, and assign them to local variables in the enclosing scope. So what does this mean? Let's look at the example number 1, destructuring array items. So we can see that we have const, then we have an array for our array that contains first, second, then an empty third, then the fourth. So what this is trying to do is that we want to assign all these variables to these numbers on the right hand side. So notice that the destructuring happens on the left hand side of the equation, and whatever we want to assign to it happens on the right side of the equation. So this is equivalent to assigning 10 to first, assigning 20 to second, and assigning not 10 to the third variable because it does not exist, so it skips it. Then it assigns 40 to the fourth variable. So this can save a lot of time when you want to assign so many variables at the same time. So you can just put them in arrays and put what you want to assign on the left hand side for the structuring. So the second one, let's look at the structuring object properties. So you can also destructure object properties as well. So you will get to see this a lot, especially in React. So you can sometimes you will see that you have to destructure, use states, and use from a lot of things from the React library as well. So you need to learn how to destructure to do that. So it still follows the same way with the array. And in our example, we can see that we have pi e and square root 2. These are all objects. These are properties of the object math, and we are assigning pi to that property. So we have pi is equal to math.pi, e is equal to math.e, and math square root 2 is equal to math.square root. So we are assigning all of this to the property, the object property that we binded it to. So let's look at the fourth. Let's look at the fourth thing you need to learn to be a better React programmer, and the first one is arrow functions. So let's look at arrow functions, the evolution of arrow functions from the ES5. So we can see that when we were how do we write functions in ES5? We needed to name the function when we write function, the function keyword. So we write the function keyword. Then the next one is we are going to name our function. In this case, we name our function greet on the second line on this output. So we name our function greet. Then the third thing we do is to pass in an argument. In this case, our argument is name, and then we put what we want to return in curly braces. Now, this is actually okay. You still need to use it sometimes, so you need to know it very well. So because it's not every time you can use arrow functions. It's not recommended to use arrow functions all the time. You can only use arrow functions when you are writing, when you want to return something simple. So let's look at this function once again. So to call this function, we are going to call this function later in the program. We are going to simply put the name of the function, which is greet. Then we pass in an argument. So in this case, we are passing an argument silver, so that silver gets replaced with our name. So and we are returning hello silver. So when we call this function, it's going to return whatever the function is to return, whatever we specify for the function to return. So in this case, name just gets replaced by silver. So notice how we have to use hello. Then hello, we put hello in quotes, in single quotes. Then we have to leave a space at the end of it and add name to it. So we have to concatenate these two things together. So instead of this, you can actually use the template literal that I've said before. So to achieve that, you just put the backtick, then you write hello, then you put your name in. Include your name in a curly bracket with a $sign in front of it, so that it's going to know that it is a JavaScript function that needs to be called within it. So let's look at the ES6 syntax, the first use case of arrow functions. So in this case, we are naming our function greet. I'm passing I'm passing an argument name as well. So in this case, you can see that instead of putting our argument in brackets, we simply just wrote the arguments without the bracket. We got rid of the bracket, and we introduced an arrow function. And put what we want to return inside the function to return inside the curly braces. So when we call this function later and pass an argument silver to it, it is not the same thing as the first one. But you can see that actually what's the difference between these two? there's actually no much difference because it still uses the same 4 lines of code to return the same output. So let's go forward and see how we can even make arrow functions better, because you get to use arrow functions a lot. When we get wire other functions and arrays, it is when you start using dot for each, map, filter, reduce, you are going to be using these arrow functions quite well, and you have to know how to use it very well. So to simplify the arrow function, we are simply going to remove. Firstly, we have removed the brackets. We have removed the brackets we put our arguments in. So the next thing we'll do is to remove the curly braces, remove the brackets, and return. And we remove the return, because ideally the arrow function means it knows that you want to return something. It usually returns something. So you can see that we have shortened our 4 lines of code to just 2 lines. Wow. So let's take a look at what happened. How did that happen? So it simply, what we did was to simply named our function greets and passed an argument name to the function. Then we used our arrow functions and we just put what we wanted to return on the right hand side of the arrow function. It's that simple. We just have to put it so you can use. You notice I used by template literals for this to make it all easier. So if you do not want to use template literals, you can still use the same thing we have on line 3 of this screen. So you get the same output. So and we call our function greet, then we pass an argument silver to it, and it returns silver as we expected. It returns, it's going to return hello silver. I must have missed that. So please kindly take note of that. It's going to return hello silver, same as what we had in the first one with the brackets and return. So it's going to return the same thing. So you get to use this from time to time, so you have to know it very well. So, but you notice that the only reason we are not putting our arguments in brackets is because we are passing just one argument to this function. So if you are going to have more than one argument, it is recommended that you put the arguments in brackets and separate them with a comma. So you can call the function later by calling the function and passing in the 2 arguments. So in this case, we defined a function greet that collects 2 arguments, first and second, and returns hello, the first argument and the second argument. So when we call the function and passing team as our first argument, we pass in silver as our second argument, we are going to get an output hello team silver. So you have to know how to use this very well so that React will be quite easy for you. So let's look at the 5th one, which is higher order functions. Higher order functions and arrays. Actually, there is more of them, about 5 of them. We have dot for each, filter, we have sort, but I'll only be talking about map, filter, and reduce in this. So let's take a look at map. So what map simply does is it takes everything in an array and maps them. It passes a function. It passes a callback function. We call this a callback function. So we don't have to name this function. It's just a callback. So we just pass in the argument and pass in what we want to return. So to do this, we add .map, the .map method to this array, and we pass in our callback function. In this case, we have e is equal to e times e. So what we simply want this array to do is to map each element in this array and return this function on it, perform this operation e times e on it. So for the first, you can see that the result, what we have was 4. So when it was 4, e is equal to e times e, and it returns 16. Then the next one was 2, and it returned 4, and the last one was 0, and it returned 0. So this is how to use the map. It eliminates the need to use for loops or while loops and so to achieve. So you can just achieve anything you want to look for on one line of code with map, filter, or reduce. So you can see that this result, it gives us exactly what we want. So you can play around it and see, explore other examples. So the next one we're going to look at is the filter. So the filter method, the same way, it works the same way with map. We passing a callback function after the filter. So we append the array to modify our array. We add the filter method to it, and we pass in our callback function. So in this case, our callback function is going to return an output. It's going to return an output, and the output will check if the remainder for when we divide each element of this array by 2, and the remainder is equal to 0. When it is true, it is going to return the output. So we are trying to filter even numbers. This simply means we are trying to filter the even numbers out of this array. So we can see that when we pass in the number 4 argument, it checked and it divided by 2 and saw that it is 0. It is true, so it returned 4. When we passed in 7 and we divided by 2, it was not true and it did not return it. When we checked 2, it did the same thing, and when it was 0 and it's true, it returned it in our array. So note that higher order functions and arrays usually return an output. So they have to return an output. So that's why they are higher order functions. They return an output. So let's look at the third one, which is reduce. So reduce was the only difference between reduce and this above two is because reduce receives 2 arguments, which is an accumulator and the current value. And this is how we write the callback function for reduce. So what reduce simply does is it takes everything inside our array and adds them together. That's what it just simply does. So in this case, it is useful, for example, when we want to sum all the prices in the shopping cart. So when we have multiple items selected in the cart, so we can just use the reduce. It reduces everything to a single output. So let's look at what happens, how the process goes. So in this case, the initial value is always 0. That's why we have array plus accumulator, 0 as our output. So initial value is always 0. So on the first iteration, it takes 16 and adds it to 0, and it gives a new current value, which is 16. Then on the second iteration, it adds that current value that we have. It adds it to the new argument, which is 4. So it has 16 plus 4, and we have 20. And the third iteration, it adds 20, the current value. So you can see that it basically just sums everything up. So what are the other things you need to learn? You go over a list of few of them. So we have the rest and spread operator, promises and async waits, module imports and exports, conditional operations, and timeouts and intervals. So I will not be covering all of this in this video. So you can simply do a research. Some of them are quite easy to learn. Some of them will take a while before you get them, and it's okay. So, but I assure you that when you learn all of this JavaScript, because all of these are JavaScript, so you not confuse them with React. So when you learn all of this and you are comfortable with them, that means you are now a soldier with a loaded rifle and you are ready to take on React. So happy coding, take on React. Thank you for watching.